I was nominated for Africa's most influential businesswoman last year. I was one of the finalists. And before that, I won an award, and before that, and I've worked for all these fabulous companies. But what you don't hear is I was a really wild child. I grew up without a mother, so I ran riot. And I learned to set a table in my late 20s. The CV might look fabulous. I was expelled from school when I was at Parktown Girls and sent to Potch Girls, where I was voted the person most likely to end up in jail. So you can see nothing is ever as it appears. And that's what makes deal making so complicated. You have to pay attention to all these complex issues that are included in a deal. You've got to have specific skills to get deals. There's a little set of skills that you must have, or you will not make it in business. And it doesn't matter what level of business you are in. When I looked up the definition of a deal maker in the dictionary, this is what I got. Somebody who arranges deals. As my husband would say, that's as much use as a bicycle is to a fish, whatever that means. Okay. I thought, well, that doesn't explain what a deal maker does. So I wrote this one. Essentially, a deal maker is somebody who uses instinct. They use gut feel. You're surprised to see that there? Don't be. They use processes and they use skills. So basically, it's something you can learn. What you've also got to learn to do is trust your gut. And there's 4 areas you've got to be able to address as a deal maker. You've got to be able to negotiate. You cannot be a deal maker and not negotiate. You've got to be able to sell. You've got to be able to communicate effectively and understand power and how to adjust power. I'm going to address all of them quick in little sound bites for you. And we're going, but that's what you need. Think about yourself. What are you lacking, or have you got all 4 already? If you haven't, the good news is there'll be something that you can take away with from this session. When I was trying to understand negotiation, I love going to the dictionary as my starting point and then expanding from there. This is what I found. It's somebody who gets agreement through discussion and compromise. Nothing could be further from the truth. There's one word there that's completely wrong. Compromise. Compromise. This is the definition of compromise, for heaven's sake. Somebody goes into a deal expecting to get less than they wanted. A monkey can do that. A monkey can go and trade his bananas and come away with less. It takes no rocket science, no intelligence to just give in and give stuff away. Don't confuse compromise with flexibility. They are not the same thing. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're buying a company. And you go and you say to the guys, here's your company, we want 51% of the shares. And they say, that's just not going to work for us. They want to give you 46 or 36. How much does it take to consolidate numbers into a balance sheet? 36. How much? 35. They say, you can have 35. Most of us will say, well, that's not going to work for me. And we'll say, stuff you, and they say, well, stuff you back, and you leave, and you haven't got a deal. When you think like a negotiator, you say, okay, you're only going to give us 35%. If you give us management control, and you give us the right to buy up to 51%, and you add these conditions, then you can still do the deal at 36. But we get a number in our heads. I need 51. And then when they say no, we're stuck. We don't know where to go. So in negotiation, if this is what you ask for, and they say, well, you can't have that, don't see it as a stumbling block. Just be flexible. Say, well, you can then keep that, providing you give me that, and you add on. What's the difference between negotiation and bribery then? You're going to give them something to get what you want. What's the difference? Nowhere in a definition of bribery does it say it's illegal. If you're negotiating your salary and you make a concession to get something you want, it's personal, or you give something to the other guy. Bribery is giving to get. Maybe it's a personal level, but even on individual with your wife, that's very personal. Your husband, does it fall into the realm of bribery? See, they're exactly the same transaction. You give to get. The only difference is the ethics. And I guarantee you, every single one of us in this room has a different set of ethics. One of us might think something's acceptable, another person might think it's not. This is my rule for making sure that I don't overstep the wrong line for bribery and negotiation. If it's going to get me into trouble with the law, with my partner, my business partner, with my family, my friends, my colleagues, my customers, if it's going to get me into trouble, it's the wrong side. And that's my line. The process of giving to get is exactly the same whether you're bribing, and I think a lot of people avoid negotiation because they think it's bribery. So just ask yourself, if I do this, will it get me into trouble? Well, that's what I ask myself. Moving on to selling. So remember, you need to be able to negotiate, to sell, to communicate, and understand how to adjust power. You've got to sell yourself. You've got to sell yourself. And I think one of the things we've got to overcome is this negativity. It is caused by these stereotypes. But we think, ooh, selling, Every single one of us sells every single day in some form. All selling is persuading. If you're selling and you're going to get benefit from it, is it the wrong side of the line? No. But selling is persuading. But what is persuading is the interesting thing. It's getting somebody, I love this definition, to perform a specific action by begging, pleading, and coaxing. And I think selling is just about persuading by overcoming the other person's concerns, their objections, their issues. Negotiation, you don't have to like each other. There's no overcoming nothing. You give to get. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. There doesn't have to be a relationship. And it's very useful in a deal that's high in conflict because you don't have to bond. Selling, you're not going to get the deal unless you're able to build that relationship. If you have a deal and you have a choice whether you sell and negotiate, which one should you do first? Why? Negotiation is expensive. You have to give to get the deal rather than just convince somebody. You see the subtleties and the differences. It's the difference between selling and manipulation. Manipulation is just a form of selling where you press emotional hot buttons. Is it right? Is it wrong? It's the whole, negotiation bribery argument. Is it right? Is it wrong? If you manipulate, is it right or is it wrong? I'll give you my definition. Look at your intent. If it's to harm or you're being greedy, it's the wrong side of my line. But if it's sometimes you have to manipulate people to help them. So don't just discount it and say, sorry, it doesn't work, throw that out. So, we get these ideas in our head. Oh, can't manipulate, can't bribe, but we don't really know what we're making statements and taking positions on. If you agree that we have management control, then you can keep the majority shares. If you agree that you will review my salary in 3 months, then I'll accept this. If you agree that you will take me out for dinner tonight, then I'll agree to pick up the kids from school. Remember that word, if. And even if somebody asks you something outrageous, don't say yes, because you could be just giving something away and compromise is bad. Don't say no, because you could be blocking the deal. Say to yourself, if. And you can even say that out loud. But it's if, not if, okay? If you. You've got to decide what works for you, but you now know the secrets of what it takes to be a world-class deal maker. You've got to be able to negotiate. You've got to be able to persuade. You've got to be able to communicate effectively. And what's the best word in the whole world? If. And you've got to understand how power works. And that's the start. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Hot room, hot speaker.